You're listening to The Next Chapter is Hers, a podcast about healing, growth, and becoming the main character of your life. We are your hosts, Hannah
and Heather, sisters, storytellers, and your weekly hype women.
Welcome back, main characters. Welcome back, main characters. Today we are so excited because we have an amazing guest with us, and it's nice because Heather has not met her yet, so you guys are all going to get to know her.
No, but I follow her online, so
Yeah.
I know her mission. I know her principle. I've seen her TED Talk.
She is probably one of the most influential people I think I've ever met in my entire life.
I think I'm going to need this conversation like deep in my soul.
Yes, I 100% agree. I know that when I worked with her a while ago, she was actually one of the first people to photograph me nude.
Ooh.
I know. And so I trusted her with my soul back then.
And your titties.
And my titties. And I still do now. And she has continued to just progress and grow and create an amazing platform that is so empowering and so inspiring.
And body positive.
Yeah. So today's episode is going to be all about falling back in love with your body, learning to appreciate it, and really reclaiming what it means to like own and love yourself.
I'm here for it.
Me too. I know we all need to have this conversation today. So I would love to invite Teri Hofford. She's a photographer, an author, an educator, a body image advocate, and she is probably one of the most transformational voices in empowerment and body love. Welcome to the chat, Teri.
Welcome, Teri.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'm so
how are you
excited to be here.
doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's good. The spring is here now, so I feel that I've come alive again, which is nice.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are. Fill us in a little bit.
Yeah, so I describe myself as a body image educator, photographer, author, TEDx speaker, basically multi-passionate entrepreneur who, at the core of everything I do, comes back to helping people move towards body and self-acceptance. And I've always been that way, even when I was a kid. But I live now in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I moved from Winnipeg just last year, so I'm starting anew here, which is kind of scary because it is like a city compared to Winnipeg was more of a small town city. So yeah, so it's been kind of fun to think about like, oh, how can I take this even bigger in this bigger city now? Yeah, so it's been a lot of moving, growing, changing, trying stuff, and yeah, I'm just happy.
I love that. I feel that in my bones.
And of course, there's women everywhere that need your
expertise,
point of view and your expertise. And so I don't think it really matters where you go. You are a voice for women everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
Definitely
that.
needed everywhere. So, Teri, you once said body image isn't about how we look. It's about what we've been taught to believe about how we should look. Can you tell us what the truth has meant in your own life with that quote?
Yeah, I think like I realized that from when I was a boudoir photographer, and after seeing thousands of people come through my doors, every single one of them saying that they hated their body. I was like, this can't be about the body if literally every person thinks this. So that was kind of like my first aha of like, what's going on here? It's got to be more about what we think about our bodies that's getting in the way than the actual body itself. And then when I look back to my own life and how I like grew up, that was definitely true. When I had moved to Busan, South Korea, and lived there for 2 years, and while I was there, my body was the smallest it had ever gotten because I got really hardcore into bodybuilding and fitness, and I was lonely, so that was the only thing I could focus on. And I finally had like achieved this body that society told me I should have. And I hated myself more then than I did when I was in a larger body. And that was kind of like the bigger moment of recognizing like it isn't about the body. It is really what we're projecting onto our bodies that is the thing that's getting in the way. And there are definitely companies out there that want us to hate ourselves, so that way we just keep buying stuff and buying into trends and fads as if our bodies aren't scientific organisms that are just doing their job. So yeah, and they're like, anybody can even agree to this. There'll be one day you go to a fitting room that has a ring light around the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I look amazing in this outfit. And then you go like in the mall to the next store and they have pot lighting, like the light that comes down. And you're like, oh my God, I'm a hideous monster. And it's literally like 20 minutes apart. And again, it's like your body did not change in 20 minutes. You did not change in 20 minutes. But what you've been taught about what you're seeing in that image is the thing that's making you feel that way. And what are those stories? And so that's kind of what I help people unpack and question and work through, is like all these, like what we have come to believe as the truth, and understand that it's actually our truth, not the truth necessarily.
Got to give it to those torrid dressing rooms with the good lighting and the fan.
The fan, yeah. See, I used to write to like plus size stores, and I'm like, y'all need to get ring lighting around your mirrors because your profit margins will go up immensely. Like you will see the difference in sales if you just change the lighting in your stores. So I'm hoping that that's why they did that. I would always take video on my phone and post it to my stories. I'm like, this is all you have to change.
And the cold shoulders.
Oh yeah. And the fashions you're deciding to put in. They have stepped up though, I will say. They're showing a bit better stuff now.
Now hopefully they can just keep things in stock a little longer, bring out more lingerie,
Yeah. Yeah.
We're still expecting more from them.
Yeah. Torrid.
Always. We'll always be expecting more. Or like other companies, feel free to join in the game.
Yeah.
So we're not just having to shop at one store. We actually have options. That'd be great.
My husband is hilarious because we've been together for 15 years. We've been married for 10. And he still doesn't understand, as a plus size woman, that I just can't like go into the store and like buy something. And every time we have a trip or something, I'm, ordering things online. And he's like, I don't understand why you have all these packages showing up. Why don't you just go somewhere and like put something on? I'm like, it just doesn't exist, Michael. It doesn't exist. It's really, it's hard to exist in a big body in this universe.
Yeah, when it's not set up for you in that way, it's like just another reminder that like something is wrong with you, even though that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
It reinforces those truths that we were talking about earlier. And that's where we learned it from in the first place. So they just like create the ecosystem for that kind of thought and belief to flourish, which is really unfortunate, and why we have to be intentional about fostering a different truth within ourselves. And so that's the work that has to be done, I think.
I love it.
What would you say was like your perspective change? You said that you were the smallest body you ever had when you were living and you were alone in Korea, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said you had finally gotten to what society would say was your, smallest body, and you still hated it. Like, what do you think was that shift in your mindset that took you to become like who you are now?
Yeah, so growing up, I was always a bigger kid. So I had been bullied from the time I was little. And thankfully, I had a mom that was not super invested in diet culture. Mm. And so she was very good at instilling in me critical thinking, essentially. So when I would get bullied, I'd go home crying, and she had a conversation with me that really helped me decide for myself, like, just be who you are. But then moving into my 20s, we really care about what other people think of us. And so like diet culture just doesn't go away. And I was living alone. And at first I started to lose weight accidentally just because the food, and I was moving everywhere in Korea. It's very different than the prairies of Manitoba. So like, I was like, oh my God, I never thought this was possible for me. Like now I'm moving in the direction of what I've been told will make me happy finally. And what happened was that when I did lose that weight through orthorexia, essentially under eating and over exercising, to the point where like when I look at photos now, I'm like, ooh, I look like a bobblehead. Like it was not healthy. It was not. And the hard part about that was that I did have this body that was super strong and fit because I was bodybuilding, and I was getting so many compliments, which I had never had in that first part of my life. And suddenly men were showing attention to me, not just as the friend, but as like a potential girlfriend. And I was like, oh, this is what I've been told I should want. But inside was like this, it was not enough. I still could get smaller. Like if it's this good at this weight, imagine if I could just get even smaller and even smaller. And then eventually my body like plateaued, which it will do. And it got to the point where I was taking like diet pills. I lost my period. I had heart palpitations. I was only like 20, and my eyelids would flutter in the middle of the night. And that was kind of like my, what the fuck are you doing to your body? Like in order for it to look a certain way. But the really big, so that was kind of the start of the maybe this isn't okay what I'm doing. But then when I moved back to Canada, shortly after that, my dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And for those that don't know, that's essentially your body starves you to death. And so that was like another big awakening for me to be like, my dad just desperately wanted to eat but couldn't, and I was purposefully starving myself to look a certain way. And I remember just thinking like, that is really fucked up, you know? And then unfortunately he did pass away 3 months after he was diagnosed, and I was like, okay, that's not okay. But again, that's not how life happens. It doesn't, like, you don't just change 20 plus years of negative self-talk in like a situation. And after that, I actually ended up working for a weight loss company, surprisingly enough.
Wow.
I know. I was like, because I lost all that weight in Korea, and they were like, oh, you have a transformation that we can sell. So that's amazing. So I was like, excellent. And here's the thing. I will say there were some really good benefits. Basically, like most things, there's good and bad. So the bad was the company itself. But the good that came out of it was that I learned how to coach people and hold space for people that were wanting to talk about their bodies and the way they felt about them. And I also learned how to run a business because we were in charge of all the promotion and marketing and lunch and learns and reaching out to businesses. And that helped me when it came time for me to start my photography business. But at the end of my career there was when I went to a manager's meeting, and they literally said, we rely on 80% of our clients to fail for our profits. And I was like, what?
Some things just should not be said out loud.
Right?
Just
but I was so glad. I was so glad they did say that out loud.
Yeah, because it exposed it all.
Yeah, and it made me realize what we were doing in that company was not helping people. It literally was preying on them for profits for some guy, that owned this company. And so I quit immediately after I had heard that. I put in my 2 weeks notice, and I was like, I'm out of here. And then I found photography, which is where I really fell into helping people more so with that. But that was kind of like all the little points along the way that stacked on each other to kind of help me realize that was something that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to work with people on, and so on.
I love that you gave us backstory, because we have been doing boudoir, you said a little over a decade for you. Mm-hmm. I've been doing now, I believe, a little over a decade as well. I think it was like 13 or 14
12 or
years.
13 years.
So when working with women, right, they always ask that question to me. It's like, how did you get to the point where you felt confident enough to do this? Or when did you get to the point where you could love your body? And it's like, it's not just like a flip of a switch sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like, it takes so many moments and so many, sometimes heartbreak, like you said, right? Like, it took a lot for me to get to a point where I could open up, feel confident, and really love my body in a way and respect it in a way that made me want to take care of it. I couldn't just choke down the idea of, okay, it's time to love myself, and I was able to do it. Mm-hmm. We cannot hold ourselves to such hard standards that we can't just abide to instantly.
Yeah.
This is my inner struggle on the daily. I have a 4-year-old daughter, Teri. So you had mentioned that your mom was not super invested in diet culture, and we had the opposite mom. So I think Hannah and I have discussed this in other episodes. It definitely comes from a place of love with her, realizing that she dislikes the body that she's in. And she didn't want us to feel the same way about our bodies.
Because like Teri said, when you had lost that weight, you had gotten validation. You had people talking to you differently. Right. You were being treated differently. And our mother had experienced it the opposite. Yeah. She saw how people treated her differently. And her biggest thing for us was, stay skinny, stay healthy, stay this, stay beautiful, and people and the world will treat you better.
Right. She didn't want us to be picked on and bullied. And of course, no parent wants that for their kid. But my mom put a lot of that value in not, our education or our brains. It was beauty standard. You know what I mean? It was fitting a certain body size. And for some reason, she thought that would shield us from the world's evils. But obviously it doesn't. So one of my biggest goals as a mother and a plus size woman is I don't want to pass down those body insecurities to my daughter. And it's so hard because it's so deeply ingrained in me to hate my body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not like, I'm definitely naked mom. So it's not like I am shameful of my body, but I think it's more like I just have this deep like problem with my body, just back and forth. You know, I'm always, you know, one way or the other with it. But it is my life's goal to not pass that down to my daughter. I've been on a weight loss GLP-1 journey for my health and all kinds of things. And, you know, when my daughter sees me get on the scale, I really try to, regardless of what's happening in my brain, I really try to not portray a negative experience. She loves to jump on there and I congratulate her on how much she weighs. You're growing so well. But yeah, that is my life mission, is to really try to take a more body neutral, I guess, attitude and really try not to make everything about weight and body and size and appearance. But it's a struggle.
Well, a big part of that is, if you think about the way I like to explain it to people, is when we don't like our bodies, it's not actually our bodies we don't like. It is the things about ourselves that we project onto our bodies. So for you, just from what you've told me just now about your mom being that way, what your body represents is a lack of love from your mother. Like that's how your little child brain, like little Heather, would have interpreted that, of like, oh, if my body changes to be big, then my mom might not like that, or I won't make her happy if my body changes.
Deep.
So a big part of that struggle is the body is just the body doing its thing, but that's where a lot of the shame comes from, is what we project into what our body means. And it's the same thing when we look at our money mindset. Like for me, like that's how I can relate to it, is I am afraid to make money because my dad talked terribly about people that had lots of money. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not money that's the problem. It is what I make money mean because of my relationship to somebody else, a caretaker specifically. They're the ones that always do the best job. And so but that's where, Heather, I think one of the best things that you can do, and that's any parent actually out there, my favorite thing to tell parents to do, I don't have kids, so let me preface it with that, but try your best to encourage them to critically think. So like my mom did with me, not telling me what to think. She said when I was being bullied, like, you have two choices. You can change yourself if you want to try to fit in. Chances are pretty good that they'll just find something else to pick on you for because you're a sensitive kid. Or you can choose to be yourself, and whoever is your friend is going to be your friend. You might not have a lot of friends. So she walked me through the outcomes, but she never told me which one to choose. She let me decide for myself which was the best one to do. As a parent that struggles with body image, I think the best thing to do is to be so open about that conversation and say, some days I have a hard time, like if you accidentally say something about your body, or say something about the scale or whatever, it says like, oh, like catch yourself when it happens, and with your child there, so you know what, some days are really hard because the world tells us that bodies are the most important thing about us, and I'm trying really hard to shift that. What are some things that mommy can think of, or what are some things that we can think about our bodies that are good things, right? And help, like, work with them to watch you redirect your thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Instead of the continual shielding of it, instead just like, one of the things, and your parents were probably very similar, like that generation also didn't talk about feelings, like that it's okay to feel shitty, or that it's okay to feel angry or sad or grief, right? You just like push that down.
Right.
Like we don't talk about that. And so now as adults, we're like, oh God, like these are just human things that we all experience. So if we can like be as open and honest with our kids and our nieces and nephews and so on, I think that's going to set them up for more success in the future than if we try to coddle them or like protect them the way, because then the pendulum just swings the other way, right?
One of our other episodes, we were talking about toxic positivity, and I feel like that could probably the way that I go through things sometimes. Maybe it is swinging the pendulum the other direction.
And again, it's like one of those things where that may be a protective mechanism, that may be a strength of yours too. Like positivity is a strength that people have, where they can walk into a room and feel that people are down and they just want to lift everyone up. Like it makes you a great cheerleader. However, in life, it can also cause us to override or just like, everything's fine. As you're like crying, you know.
That's me.
Like, yeah, it's okay. Everything's totally fine. The most traumatic thing has just happened to you, and you're like, but it'll be okay.
That's literally me.
And so it's like, okay, and like it's okay to acknowledge that, yes, there might be something good that comes of this. And like this is where instead of saying but, I think using the word and is so powerful. So like whatever you're feeling, I feel angry and I know it's going to be okay. Like both of those things can exist at the same time. But again, we've been taught that like, no, just get rid of the one thing, but it doesn't go anywhere. That's the problem. It just turns into like a coping mechanism or we emotionally, that was my thing. I was like, it's really hard to scream when your mouth is full of bread. Like that's why I started to emotionally eat when I was a kid, because I wasn't allowed, I didn't think, to feel angry or sad. So I was like, just shove my face full of food. And so like, these are all just like things that we learned and were taught. And now as adults, we get to like kind of peel back those layers and understand that both of those things can exist at the same time.
You're hitting deep.
I know. That's why I needed her on the podcast. I was like, Heather needs to experience Teri.
Guys, buckle up for a 2-hour episode.
Hey, like you guys, I also probably have ADHD. I haven't been formally diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure with the circle of friends that I run with. But like, I don't like topical conversation. Like this is literally any conversation you want to get into. I'm like, let's go. We're going in.
Yeah, I've been approaching every conversation lately like that. I'm like, okay, I don't need surface level anymore. I feel like I've lived a surface level life with so many people growing up. And now it's like, I want to dig deep with the people that I'm talking to. And I'm like, tell me all your childhood trauma. Let's unpack it.
Yeah, it's so fun. Like my one friend Beth was like, you're the only person I know that's like, oh, I really like uncovered this like trauma in my childhood. I can't wait to explore it. I'm like, yeah, I freaking love this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it kind of comes back to the conversation we had the other day. We had another guest on our podcast. Her name was Jenny. The advice that she decided to leave everybody with at the end of the podcast was stop sweeping everything under the rug, because you're going to eventually have a pile that you're going to trip over, and then you have to unpack that pile later. So it's nice to think about it when you're talking to someone who's younger, right? And I genuinely think that young children are so susceptible to the information that we're giving them that there's no blocking yet in their brain to tell them what we're telling them, like to like turn it off, right? They're so susceptible. They want to learn everything and know everything that we're thinking. And I think that's why children say like, but why so often, right? And so I find myself when I'm having conversations with my niece now that I'm talking to her like an adult and I'm asking her, you know, about her day and why her feelings are feeling so big and all that stuff. But like when you were just talking about, you know, help her unpack it in that moment and make a decision herself and help walk her through what the outcomes can be. I literally started like tearing up on the screen because I'm like, I feel like that's all I needed to hear so many times in my life. Like, okay, well, what can the outcomes be? And my brain works like that now. And I feel like it started working like that kind of early on from making mistakes and learning that I messed up. And now here's my two options I have to go with. And how do I fix this? And it's just so powerful to know that at such a young age, we can improve what they're going through and help their brain develop in ways that hopefully don't leave them with more harm later, instead of trying to protect them and shield them and cover everything up. So yeah, stop sweeping things under the rug. Confront it in the moment.
And I will say, granted, like, because my sister has like 3 kids that I like take care of them sometimes. They're older now; they're in their teens. But before, she's like, sometimes, like as a parent, though, we don't always have time to stop in the moment and have these conversations. And so, like, also give yourself that permission as well. And I think that I heard a TikTok. I don't know who it was from. I think she was like a childhood therapist or whatever. But essentially, the TikTok was like, you're gonna fuck your kids up. Like that's kind of the point. It's a human raising another human. Like, just be okay. Like, and then another person I had interviewed was like, think of yourself like the gutters at the bowling alley. Like, your job is not to like get them to go straight down the lane. It's literally to just kind of give them direction to bounce them back to the center of the lane. Like, you're the safety gutter, and that's your job. Your job is not to like pick them up and take them to the end. It is to like give them a soft place to kind of bounce off of as they learn their own things. And that's why I love curiosity, because it's one of the best tools that you can have for anybody, not just kids, but like to help people understand like what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and to take their first thought and go deeper with it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're human. Humans are imperfect. There's no way to stop any.
Yeah.
There's no way to stop raising
this is
it.
your first time here too. Like, that's the thing I always think about. Like, this is my first time being 42. You know, I've never been here before. Like, or in this situation, like I've never done that before. And having that compassion for like, this is our first time here, even if you believe in reincarnation.
I was going to say, I do believe in reincarnation. I've been here a few times, but I'm still fucking up. I'm still making big mistakes. And you got to learn from them. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. I agree with that.
Teri, how do you handle women when you're working with them, often naked, and they're shaming themselves, they're shaming their body? How do you handle kind of like turning that conversation around and bringing them back to themselves?
Yeah, great question. So I don't actually experience that a lot anymore. And I think that's for a few different reasons. Number one is because I do a lot of my work before the camera even comes into question. So I do a lot of pre-session consultations. I used to do them in person before COVID hit. Now I'll opt, like, they have the choice if they want to do in person or via Zoom. And I find that is actually my opportunity to talk about all of that. So by the time they come in for the photo shoot, that doesn't really make an appearance as often. One of the questions I ask them first is like, do you have any concerns about doing a boudoir photo shoot or a photo shoot with me? And 90% of the time they'll take it to their body. I don't have to go there with them. And I think that's like a flaw or fault of a lot of photographers is we were taught to ask, what are your insecurities? Well, people could rattle off a whole friggin' list to you of that. And my mom was like, why are you taking them negative? Like, without them, like, before they even come in, why are you taking them to their insecurities? Let them take you there if they want to, but not everyone has insecurities. So that's the first thing. So when people would say, well, I am afraid, and here's the thing, I did an Instagram poll, the majority of people are afraid of looking bigger and older in their photographs, right? And Hannah, you both could probably attest to this, right? And before, I would, like most photographers, would be like, oh my God, don't worry. I can pose you, light you, style you in a way that's going to make you look amazing. But that didn't really do that, shove that shame under the rug. That didn't do anything with the shame.
Yeah, we're just going to hide your shame.
Yeah, exactly. So instead, what I ask them now, and I encourage other photographers to ask, is what would it mean if you did? So if you are afraid of looking big in a photo, and feel free if you want to be my test subject, Heather, what are you afraid of if you did look, like, what would it mean if you did look bigger in a photograph?
I think I would have to face that I am actually bigger or bigger than I think I am. I don't know. I think it would like emotionally hurt my soul.
And why? What does being bigger mean?
Teri's trying to make me cry on the podcast.
It's not a good podcast till someone cries.
You don't, I mean, feel free to sit with the question if you want. You don't have to answer on here. But that's what happens is I ask that question to people. What would it mean if you saw the thing that you're afraid of seeing? And by asking that question, rarely, like, women have been taught that when we talk about body shame, to just either join in on the fun and be like, oh my God, no, you're beautiful. I've got blah, 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 blah wrong with me. Like, think of the Mean Girls, you know, that part in the Mean Girls where they're in the mirror.
My breath stinks when I wake up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what we've been taught to relate to other women on. Is like a competition of who can hate themselves the most.
Yes.
And that's bullshit. Or we've been taught to say, no, you look amazing, right? But nobody questions, well, what would it mean if that did happen? Because it might. I don't know how you see yourself. So I could take the best photo of you on the planet, and it could do all the things that you're asking me to do for you. But whatever you want to see, even if you don't want to see it, but that's what you're focused on seeing, will be what you see.
Yeah.
And so for me, I found the best question for me to ask was, what is it going to mean if you do see that in a photo of yourself, and really get to the heart of the shame? And so for most people, when I ask that, like, what does being bigger mean? They'll usually say, well, it would mean that I've let myself go. That's a common one. I'm unattractive. Those are the main two usually. So then I take it a step further and I say, well, what would it mean if you let yourself go? Or what would it mean if you were unattractive? And usually they'll sit in silence and be like, I don't know. That's the ego being like, let's just protect us here. This is safe here. But if you sit in silence and don't say anything, they will eventually be like, that my partner will leave me, that I'm not lovable, that I'm not worthy. Like, who wants to see this? Essentially, at the core of ourselves is the desire to belong. And if we can understand that you're not afraid of seeing yourself as being bigger in a photo, you're afraid of being alone. That's the ultimate fear that we all have, that our partner's going to leave us, that nobody's going to love us, that I'll be alone and I'll die in a ditch. Our brains are very dramatic, by the way. But it always comes back to that, because back in the caveman days, if we were alone, we would have died. Like a saber-toothed tiger would have eaten us, or we would have not had food, or whatever, right? And so evolutionarily, our brains are wired to belong. So when we have been taught our whole lives, like, especially, that generation of like the 60s and 50s and 60s of parents that were taught, like, if you gain weight, your husband's gonna leave you. And they usually did. And then they were left with no money and they had to raise all the kids on their own. Like, that is a trauma. And so they pass that on to us so that we don't feel that. Like, so it is a very ingrained fear that we will be alone as women and we will die. But now, consciously, we know, you know what? Even if I was alone, I think I would be fine, right? I would figure it out. But I can't get people there from, I'm afraid to look big in a photo. I need them to get themselves there so I can have that conversation with them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So much sense.
Yes, they have all that ahead of time before the photo shoot happens. Because now when they come into the photo shoot, they're open to whatever the photos are going to be. And I go through, obviously, like the things I talk about in my TED Talk. Like, here's why you see yourself the way that you do, and here's how we can overcome that. But I want them to come in with their most creative and openness, and beauty standards like just stop us from being so creative, and I hate it. So I want to do my part to like kind of fight against that and allow people to express themselves in whatever way that is, even if it is counterintuitive to what we've been taught is beautiful. And I'm using air quotes for those that are listening.
So
I know, I love it. I feel like I have been in these positions before, right? Like, my body has changed quite a lot since I got into photography. I, have been 120 pounds. I've been 230 pounds. Like, I feel like, and I've been photographed in each one of those stages of my life. So, there were days that I would model for a friend or something like that, and I would look at the photos and be like, oh my God, like, who is she? And it would make me excited and make me feel good, because I would feel society's version of beautiful. I would feel thin, or my boobs would look perky or
Validated.
something. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, I got a little gold star for the way that I look in this photo shoot today. And then literally not even a week later, I could model for a different friend, and I could be like, oh my God, why does my body look like that? Why I look swollen, I look fat, I look short. Like, why are my legs so round? And I would pick myself apart. And then I'd be like, oh, I'm not modeling anymore for anybody. And then I would just jump in front of the camera again another time randomly. It got to a point where I can't remember exactly which photo shoot it was, but I remember I had gotten the photos after, and my brain went to that moment. It went to, I look bigger than I thought I was. And it was like, oh my God, is this how people view me? And then I started shaming myself. And I realized I kind of had that moment where I was like, what does that, like, why am I shaming myself, right? Like, whose standards am I trying to live up to? Society is an asshole. Like, media, they're jerks. Like, do I really need their approval of what my body looks like? And so my brain kind of went in that direction. And then it became, if I have gained weight, if I have lost weight, and I was able to look around, and really this was kind of only a year ago that I have become fully comfortable within myself, because I was like, I still have people around me that love me. And I don't think those people love me because of the way that I look. They love me because of my brain. And so it allowed me to kind of heal that like mind to body connection. And as I started working through that and realizing like my validation doesn't come from how I look, and I don't need the validation from society. My validation that I need is within me, because the people that I love most are coming around me and hanging out with me because of my brain, of who I am.
For your soul.
For my fucking soul.
Yes.
And if you're not healing your soul, for me, I believe your body will never heal, because they need to be in sync. They need to all be together. So when you're having a war in your brain, it's making it worse, personally.
I'm realizing I need so much therapy.
One of my favorite things that I've always said is like, I've never met somebody who truly loved themselves that hated their body. Because again, it goes back to, what are we making our bodies mean? Our brains are meaning making machines. We literally make meaning out of everything. And so when you look at somebody that has the exact same body as you, you're like, oh my God, because you just see their beautifulness. You're like, oh my God, you are the most gorgeous, amazing, awesome person, because your brain assigns that meaning based on what you know about that person, right?
I do that every single day.
Yeah, and we assume the best about most people, even the people that don't deserve it. But then what happens is we look in the mirror and we're like, ooh, but not you though. And that's because we know all of our trauma, all of our shame, all of our guilt, all of the mistakes we've made. And this body is just a representation of that, which is why if you have all of that, regardless of how your body changes, you still will not like yourself. You still will not be okay with what your body looks like, because it still represents that. And the way I always like cement that kind of message is like, just think of like an ex that you had. When you first met them, you were like, oh my God, you were like the most cutest little thing ever. And I love you. You're handsome. You're attractive. And I just want to all over you. And then they did something to you. Either they were physically abusive, emotionally abusive, whatever. Now they're the ugliest motherfucker you've ever seen in your life.
Yes.
But they physically did not change. But
right.
what their body represents, what their face represents, is all that terrible trauma and horrible things that they've done, if that makes sense. And so we do that to ourselves, though. And so it's important for us to work through, like you were talking about, work through healing the soul, healing the shame that we carry about things that have nothing to do with our body. Our body just becomes the scapegoat for all the things we think about ourselves. And that has nothing to do with the body at all.
You've left us stunned.
Stunned. She was too stunned
to
speak.
happen.
It's crazy because, you know, when people, I find them getting lost in their heads and stuff like that, I take an easy route when we're photographing, right? Because the last thing you want to do is bring up trauma with a camera, you know, in the room and lights and all that stuff. And so I feel like a lot of times what, you know, I do, or like my makeup artist has done before, it's been what matters right now? What even is the world? What even exists right now? Like, we're floating on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Our souls are just living in these meat suits. Like, these meat suits are here to protect us, but our soul is the only thing that really matters. And it's like, I feel like even just being able to say that to somebody sometimes allows them to come out of their head just enough where they're like, you're right, fuck it. Like, it's a meat suit that we're just wandering around in.
Exactly. Your little earth suit. And I do ask that question to people sometimes. And I think I wrote a post about this like a few years ago. Essentially, if you believe in wherever you begin your life, right? Your soul is like bloop, a little soul just bopping around the universe. And then some higher power's like, okay, you get to go to Earth. You get to experience being a human. You get to taste food, and you get to touch trees, and you get to hear birds, and you get to be with your babies. You get to be with babies, and you get to like love and be loved. But this is the body you're going in. This is the only suit that's available for your soul. Would you take it? Right? And the thing is, yeah, most people would. Because if that's how you get to experience being on this planet, being with the people that you now know and love and cherish and have your babies and like create the life that you create and the friendships you create. And this was the body that allowed that to happen. This was the only vessel that was available to you at the time that you could come down and experience this. And I think that's really cool.
That is okay. So when I went through like a horrible year a couple years ago that led into a horrible breakup, that led into like a horrible depression cycle, right? I don't know if it was your post that I saw, but something very similar. And it basically said, what if you're going through all this pain and all this hurt and everything, right? What if you were already above? What if you were already in heaven? What if you were already just a soul floating around, right? And that higher being said, you know, do you want to go back to earth? And it was like, well, yes, I do, because along with that hurt, along with that pain comes so much beauty and so much love. And that shit knocked me out of my depression like a boxing glove. And literally I was like, you're right. If this was my second chance coming back to the earth and I begged for this, I begged for all these beautiful things, then I would take all of this hate and all of these sad things at the same time, because life can be so good when you're able to experience it and open up to it and embrace it.
I am a firm believer of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yep.
And that there are things in this life that you go through for a reason because it makes you who you are in the end. And I know that there's been tons of things that have gone through my, that have happened in my life that I'm like, that fucking sucked. But you know what? I came out the other side and I'm better for it. I'm stronger for it. I'm braver for it. I'm smarter for it. And I wouldn't be who I am today, or know the people I know today, or be with the people that I'm with today, had it not been for XYZ.
I will say that's a very positivity answer, which is fun, which is good to have. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. No. But like, I think that's a good, like, for me, it's similar in that I will be like, okay, there's a lesson here somewhere, because I'm a teacher by nature. Like, I love to teach. So I'm like, crap. This is the only way I'll get through the hard stuff is by being like, okay, I'm going to go into this like an anthropologist and like watch it happen and unfold and take notes of like, what am I experiencing and how can I relate this to people later? I just think it's important that we have to note for some folks, though, that like, you did not ask for those things to happen to you. And
True.
That's okay. And for some people, I think I saw a post about this where it's like, what I went through didn't make me stronger. It did make me more resilient to other things that happened, but I wish that I didn't have to experience it. That like, you did not deserve to, whatever those hard things were, you did not deserve to experience those things. And it's good that you were able to take something from them to make meaning of it, like Viktor Frankl talks about in Man's Search for Meaning. And it's important to note that you did not deserve those things to happen to you for you to become this amazing soul. Because you were always that amazing soul at the beginning, right? You were always this amazing, beautiful, glowy human right from the moment you were conceived and brought into the world. And all those things were terrible things that happened. And I think even if you didn't experience those, you would still be that amazing, glorious human. You just would have found a different way to get there, I think. So I just think it's important to have that aspect in there.
I'm crying.
Yeah.
This is why my dog came up to me, because he was like, I need to snuggle. It's therapy couch time.
Oh, we call it therapy when I'm
literally. That's the episode title, I think.
Yeah, you could call
therapy.
It. That's good. Yeah. So I don't want to take away from that, because I know that's like I said, lots of people feel that way, but I do know there are people that are less positive about those things happening, and so I think we just have to make space for the people that are listening that might
have different perspectives.
Yeah, on that, and understand you were always meant to be the beautiful human that you are, like the beautiful soul that you are. Those are just road bumps along the way.
Damn.
Yeah.
My brain has stopped working right now.
Yeah, it's off.
She really was too stunned to speak.
I just want you to know that you're all loved and you're deserving of good things.
I agree. And I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves, like you said, because of our past trauma that's been passed down to us, and what things mean to us, and what our bodies mean to us, and what beauty means to us. And really, it's like my life mission really is to heal my soul and help others heal their souls. Like, that is the most important to me.
Yeah, and I think that's like what I had to realize too, like as somebody that loves to teach, that before I was doing more preaching and less teaching, where I'm like, here's what everybody needs to do. But I realized to be a good teacher, I just had to role model. Like I had to go first and say, like, this is what I tried. Feel free to give it a go. Or like, this is what's working for me. Having these types of conversations, like planting seeds, like that is more teaching than what I was doing before, which was definitely more like, here's what you need to think and why. And if you're not thinking like this, something's wrong with you. But I think like all of us go through that in some capacity when we're really excited to share something we've learned, right?
Yeah. I kind of want to touch on something that we were starting to talk about in the beginning, or at least a word that came up in the beginning.
Ooh.
And it was taking the word self-love or body love and changing it to body neutrality. I know that this is a term that not a lot of people have heard. I've heard it because we're in the industry. We talk about this stuff all the time. But can you kind of break down the difference between like self-love and body neutrality?
Yeah, so body neutrality is just essentially this idea that your body's the least important thing about you. And it's a good place to start if you're starting from a place of like body shame, body rejection, or whatnot. And then getting to body neutral is much more feasible because it's like, it is what it is. Like you just recognize that today my body looks like this, tomorrow it's going to look like this, in 5 years it's going to look like that. Like it's just always changing. Like, and I think the best expectation we as humans can set for ourselves with our bodies is that they are biological organisms designed to shift, change, age, and eventually break down. That is their whole job. They do not care what you look like in the process at all. They do not care because their job is to keep you alive as long as possible. And they want to keep you alive as long as possible. And sometimes that looks like weight gain. And sometimes that looks like weight loss. And sometimes that looks like muscle gain, muscle loss, chronic illness, all sorts of things. Just to keep you here on this planet. And so body neutrality is kind of the acceptance of what is. And you don't have to love it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, my body's like 18th century royalty from England who's
That's
supposed to
right.
be fat and happy. I'm sitting on a
That's what I say. I definitely, my family's like Polish, German, like from very much European countries. Like I am the pilgrim woman, you know, like when I don't eat, my body's like, oh, there's a famine. Yeah. So let's hang on to everything that you do eat. So like my body just adapts. And like, that's the thing is like most of the things that happen to our bodies as we age and grow and change, it's like 98% of it is genetics. Like that's not a real statistic, but most of it is based on genetics more than anything else. And yes, there are certain things you can do and change a little bit, but what is maintainable for you will be based mostly on your genetics more than anything else. But that's kind of like the body neutrality thing of regardless if it's bigger, smaller, medium, like wherever it is what it is.
It's just a body.
You don't have to love it. Yeah, exactly. It's just what it is. And I say, one day you're going to be like, oh, I really had this outfit plan that I wanted to wear that had a crop top, for example. Ooh, but I don't really like my tummy today. Be like, wear the crop top anyways because it doesn't really fucking matter. Like, that's body neutrality. It's like, I don't have to love it, but I really like this outfit. So I'm going to wear the outfit anyways, even if I don't like my body necessarily.
I'm really trying to get to that place.
Yeah, if you want to. Like, not everybody wants to wear crop tops.
I want to wear a crop top.
Okay. So
Heather
this summer,
rocks a good crop top.
Sun's out, chum's out. Let me tell you, like, let it out. Just even in your home, right? Like, start that. That would be my advice. There is start in a place that's safe and practice curiosity. If you want to take a little bit of time, look at yourself in the mirror while you wear a crop top. Pay attention to the thoughts that come up when you wear that crop top, and get curious about them. Who taught you that thought? Where did that come from? Is it helping you wear the crop top outside in public? Who's profiting off of you thinking you can't wear a crop top, right? And like go through these different questions, and over time you'll be like, wait, that's it's probably. I don't want to blame your mom because I don't know her, but it's
my mom.
Your mom's voice.
Sorry,
so what's your mom's name?
Amy.
Amy. Okay. So when you hear that thought come up, you're like, yeah, that's not meant for girls like you. You say, Amy, take a hike. I'm wearing the damn crop top. Like, now you've put the thought out of your being. You can recognize it is not yours. So now you can do something with the thought. But as long as we believe it's ours, we don't think anything can change. So that's why I love the idea of writing down the thoughts. Just look at them and then get curious about them. And then you can decide what you want to do with them after that. But that helps your brain make peace with, like, hey, I didn't come up with this. Somebody else did. And then back to the original question. So body love is like where you love your body all the time. And that is very unrealistic for everybody. Because there are going to be situations like when your priorities change, your body will change. And as we've mentioned, the world is not set up to accommodate all bodies. And it's not even just about size. It's also about age. It's also about ability. It's also about all these things. And so we have stories and biases that feed into that. So some days it is hard to love our bodies, but that doesn't mean you can't love yourself on those days. And that's where compassion is more important than criticism. So on those days where you're like, oh, you look, okay, get this. There's one day in your cycle, literally, I think it's usually around the time you ovulate, like you will hate the way you look for no reason. Like, track it. It also coincides when you spend the most money, usually on shit that you forget that you spent money on.
It's that little face.
Like, I bought these thinking it would make me feel better. But you can track it and recognize, like, for me, as soon as I hear myself say, oh, nothing looks good on me, I'm like, oh, fuck, it's that time of the month again, like where I have this thought. So that way, instead of being critical about that, instead I say, I recognize that thought that's coming out that tells me I need to have compassion for myself today, and maybe wear the sweatpants, maybe wear the baggy t-shirt, maybe avoid mirrors. Definitely don't go online shopping. Definitely don't doom scroll and look at other bodies.
Yeah.
Like, I can then choose. But again, if we don't know these things are happening or we're not aware of our system, then we can't really change it, right? So that is something I highly recommend people to do, is like become aware of the time of month, for sure, that you're like, I hate the way I look. But also what people you hang around with that make you feel like shit. What accounts do you follow that make you feel like shit? Like, you need to audit your life heavily to recognize. And today I did a post that says, go where you glow. And so, like, what are the things that make you feel the best version of you, where little you is the most accepted and your body could look like anything, and you know the people in that room are going to celebrate and hype you up? Like, your studio would be a place like that for people, right? Where you're like, you will come here and you will glow like nobody's business because we are pouring into you over and over and over again.
And this podcast.
Yeah, like all of these experiences. But like, when we don't do an audit, when we don't become aware of those things, we keep falling back into them. So we have to replace the not so good stuff with the good stuff, or else, nature abhors a vacuum. So it'll just always default back to the old way of thinking, the old way of feeling, instead of getting ourselves out of it. So yeah, did that answer that question?
Yeah. No, that was beautiful.
I just get going and then I forget.
No, I think you're the only person I could sit and talk to, and you could ramble for hours, and I would just be like starry-eyed, like, tell me more.
Yeah, this whole episode, the video of it is just going to be Hannah and I with our little tears just at the bottom of our water lines, just wide-eyed and staring at you.
Yeah. I mean, it's also really powerful. Like you had said, it's a crazy experience when you're able to look at someone else who has a very similar body type to you and you can idolize them. But then you look in the mirror and you're like, I hate myself. And it's such a crazy thing to think that, because I have recommended that in the past. If you're following accounts that you find hurt your soul, stop following them. Try and find people that look like you online. Try and find a community that feels like you belong in it. And a lot of times, that helps, and it makes people feel better, and it helps them feel like they are seen more and they're being heard. A lot of times that leads to them finding cute outfits because now they're seeing other people with the same body type wearing things that, they can visualize on their own bodies.
That's a big part. That's where like photographers are so important to this, because we contribute to the representation. If we don't see
Yes.
it, we can't believe it, right? Which is why I started teaching in the photography industry at all, was because I was like, plus size people aren't coming to your studio because you have no photos to show them that it's possible. And
Yes.
so then the brain goes to the complete worst possible scenario, that I'm going to look terrible. Or you have photographers that are like, oh my God, I have somebody coming in that's a size 18. What do I do? And
Yeah.
like panic ensues. And I'm like, it's a body. You just like meet the person and ask what they want.
Yeah.
Like that's it. But because that representation never existed prior to like when I started, you know, it's all just seeing what works. And so that's why it was so important for me to push that in the photography industry, because we are the media makers that give people the evidence that it is possible to look sexy and have a fat body, to have stretch marks and be sensual. Like, again, it's like they're not exclusive of each other. We just think they are because we've never seen evidence. And so we get to change that. And it's so powerful what we get to do.
Yeah. And that leads into everything, like things that we all struggle with in our brains. I've worked with hundreds of women now at this point, and it's like we all hold those same insecurities. We all have those same feelings of cellulite, of stretch marks,
regardless of the body size that you're in.
Exactly. And we all have it. It is extremely rare to meet anybody who does not have these quote unquote flaws that are being forced down our throats. And like you said, who is profiting off of this? Why is this something we're so focused on?
Yeah, cellulite wasn't even a problem until the 70s, when some lady was like, hey, I have a cream that I want to sell, and so I'm going to tell people that cellulite's a problem, so they'll buy this cream. Even like things like deodorant or body odor wasn't an issue until some corporation was like, we need people to like feel bad about body odor, so let's sell them these deodorants that they need. Pretty much everything is made up. Like, well, everything is made up in real life, but when it comes to like beauty standards, like everything's made up, and it changes every 10 to 15 years.
Yes.
And we're seeing the swing back to like 90s, 2000s era diet culture, just with different words and more prevalent on social media. But if we can become aware of the damage it causes, then we can educate against it, which we didn't have as much back in the
heroin chic is coming
90s.
Back.
Have you seen like the low rise?
Yeah, I'm traumatized. The micro
or those
skirts.
micro skirts. I was like, you mean a belt?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no.
Yeah. I think that contributes to a lot of this also, is like clothing is made so poorly now, and all these things are just being cheapened out, so everything's shorter now, so we're seeing more of ourselves, and it's like we're trying to shield our bodies and protect our bodies with our mind, and then society is just like, you want to fix yourself? Here's some trauma sprinkled on top.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing when they mass produce like garments. No, but like the garments you see on like celebrities and even in the advertisements, they've all been tailored and they've all been pinched in. But like celebrities' clothes have been tailored to their bodies, which is why they fit the way they do. So then when we go buy a similar thing and put it on our bodies, we're like, but wait a minute, something must be wrong with me because I don't look like this. And it's like, no, they also didn't look like that when they bought the item. They had it tailored to their body.
And every brand has their own fit models, and they have their own shaping, and they have their own sizing. And so there's places that you'll go and your long torso or your long legs or your gaping waistband, you know, those styles are never going to fit your body because they were never meant to fit your body.
Yeah. And I'm like, designers just need to be more creative, because that was the thing, like with plus size clothes specifically. They're like, well, we have to charge more because it uses more fabric or whatever bullshit excuse they give. And it's like, or you could just be more creative with your designs. But again, they've been following just like photography was for a long time. They've just been following the script that they've been handed down. And so it's like, but this is what we've always done. It's like, yeah, but you don't have to keep doing it that way.
Right.
Like you can
especially
choose
when there's
something
an
else.
audience of people telling you like, here's how to do it differently. Here's what we would like. Here's things that would make us happy. Like you're being told exactly what you want. It's not like
Yeah.
these
They're like,
resources
"Oh,
don't exist anymore.
This is what you want. We'll do the opposite. Thank you."
Yeah, they're like, so what I'm hearing is less pockets and more cold shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skulls
And more
roses.
graphics.
Yes,
It's like
please.
they have a translator that just like turns everything back to what they always do. Yeah,
Disney characters.
yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna say Disney characters and skulls and flowers.
You're like, who wants to look like this?
I was
Yeah.
like, you could just hire me and I'll come in and be like, no.
Yeah.
Literally. It's crazy. Like we were talking about sizing and stuff, and I pulled out a pair of pants the other day that were old, like old. I bought them when I was in high school. They ended up getting folded up, put away, and I pulled them out, and they were just a pair of regular Target pants, and they said that they were like a 10 regular, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't been a 10 in so long. And then I look at all my other jeans that are from Target now that are the exact same size, if not smaller, and now they're like a size 14, and I'm like, this makes no sense. And I see women get hung up on this all the time, and they're like, I can't buy a bigger size, and I'm like, the sizing is being built on mannequins. It's not being built on a body, and the sizing is so different depending on what brand you're talking to. And I studied fashion for a little while, so that was a big thing for me, was understanding, that the sizing market is wildly different. I used to work for a beautiful wedding gown shop in downtown, and the scariest thing for women coming in wedding shopping was if you were a size 10 in regular clothing, you were like a 16 or 18 in wedding dresses. And this was torture for women.
It's traumatizing.
It is. But because they see that number and they equate that number to value, and they put that value on them, that the higher the number,
the less valuable they are.
And
right.
when I started a client closet in my studio, I immediately cut tags out of everything and hung everything up in the ranges that they looked like they would fit. And now when women go through, they're digging through the client closet looking for lingerie for their shoot, and they're like, oh, I don't know what size this is. And I was like, oh, me neither. Let's just try it on and see how it fits, But it was one of those things that I realized people were so zoned into what that number was on the clothing and equating it to their value and their worth. And that's just another thing that I want to make sure we put out there, is that you can't trust these sizing. You can't use the sizing as a way to gauge, how important you are, how beautiful you are, because that sizing, when you hold it up to something else, is completely different. So does it feel good when it's on your body? Does it make you smile? Do you feel comfortable in it? Do you feel cute in it? Like, those are the things we need to focus on, and we need to focus way less on if that number is a number that you have 100 other items in, right? That doesn't change the value of you.
Yeah, and that goes back to asking the question, what would it mean if you had to go up a size?
Right.
And why do you celebrate when you go down a size?
Right.
Right. And like being on, and that's where I talk about the phrase like radical honesty with yourself. You're not a bad person. I think this is like the body positivity, as it was co-opted, kind of made people feel bad for having bad thoughts about their bodies. And then it just created like a double whammy of shame. It's almost like we've been taught to just hate ourselves all the time for no reason. If we could ask ourselves, like, why do I feel bad when that number goes up? And what does that actually mean? And be honest with ourselves that I am afraid, that it means I've let myself go, that I'm unattractive, whatever, like go through that. And then on the flip side, asking, well, what am I making it mean when I go down a size, or even on the scale, when I step on a scale? If you go up half a pound, people flip. Even if you stay the same, people flip the fuck out that they stay the same weight. Right? But if you go down half a pound, it's like, oh my God, it's moving. Right? And we can't help it because, again, we've been taught by somebody else that those numbers equate to value of us instead of they're just numbers and they're all neutral. It doesn't matter what it is. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I try to put,
what does it mean?
I try to put a lot, like when I get into that headspace for myself, because, there's days I feel like a fraud. I'm preaching self-love. I'm preaching body neutrality. I'm preaching, to take those naked pictures and love yourself when you look at yourself. But there's days that we're not going to, and that's okay. And I think a big thing for me at one point was I was literally stepping on the scale every single day, and I was doing exactly what you said. I was celebrating when I was, even if the number went down by like 0.01, I was like, okay, I did something right yesterday, and you start training yourself to.
It's like morality.
Yeah.
And you beat yourself up when it goes up by 0.01 and you're like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have had
Yeah.
That extra bite.
Chinese food last night because
And it's
that's
like, no,
definitely why I'm swollen.
it's like, take a shit, you'll be fine. Like, calm down. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. And like that used to be the thing though, was like, okay, I got to go to the bathroom. I got to make sure I'm not wearing anything like,
Yeah.
in order to weigh myself. And it's like,
I do that every morning.
yeah, but as soon as you like eat food, drink some water, your stomach's gonna extend. And again, why do you feel squidgy when that happens versus when you wake up and it's super flat? It's again, what am I making it mean when these in both directions, and unpacking that all of those things you believe were not yours to begin with. Literally, somebody was like, here's everything I know about bodies. You're gonna figure this out between what I think around 2 and 3 is when kids start to realize that their bodies are separate from other bodies in the world.
Mm.
And then their brain is being formed until like 27. So in that gap, most of the work being done between like 2 and 11, I think, they're taking in this like barrage of information about bodies. So the things that we've learned were just like, it's like an ancestral game of telephone of like, well, this is what a body should look like. This is what it should do. But once we're older, we can decide if we want to keep those thoughts or not. We can literally create new ones because they're all created anyways. So what are the thoughts that are going to help us move forward to be the person we want to become? That's less infatuated with the numbers on the scale, the numbers on our pants, and so on.
To somebody like me, or the women out there that are listening that are still, struggling with their body image, they're still at war with themselves, they're listening right now, and it's a little bit more self-hate than self-love. What would you say to her to sort of let her know that she's not broken, that this is going to be okay? How would you get her to a more body neutrality state of mind?
So just the other day, I actually did a post on like the body image spectrum. So I would recommend going to check that out so you can kind of figure out where you're at on that. But I think one of the biggest things one of my favorite questions to ask people, and this came out of a relationship with a friend of mine who was like 6 feet tall, blonde, blue-eyed, literally model, like she was a model actually, and nothing I ever said or did would work for her body image. Like she had the worst body image ever. And one day I had enough of it. Like I was just like tired of it. And I said, why do you love to hate yourself? And what I realized in that question, while I didn't have to ask it in such a harsh way, what I was actually asking was, what is not liking yourself protecting you from? Because when we don't like our bodies, or we keep going, like falling back into our system of disliking ourselves, it's for a purpose. Like it is protecting you from something. And I touched on this earlier with you specifically, Heather, talking about if you just had your body the right way, then your mom would be proud of you or love you, right? Like that little version of you, however old you were when you first heard that you had to change something about you in order to be loved, but it placed conditions around love for you. Does that make sense? So yeah. By you constantly showing that I'm working towards it, then maybe I'll get that love because I'm working towards it. I'm actively moving towards it. So love me because I'm actively moving in the direction of it. Even if I'm not there, you can see I'm trying so hard. And even though I'm not saying your mom meant to do that, your mom maybe didn't mean to put those conditions on that love. That's what your 12 and 13-year-old brain locked in. And so now for you specifically, that's why it's safe for you to continue not liking your body, because it shows that you're working towards her love. Does that make sense? So that would be for you specifically. But for other people, there's other things. If I acknowledge that my body is good enough as it is, then everything I've been taught about bodies is wrong. And my whole world comes crumbling down, because if that's a lie, what else is a lie? And our brains love predictability and consistency. So we will stay what I call uncomfortably comfortable. So you don't like hating yourself, I don't think. You don't like shaming yourself, I don't think, but you can count on it. And so it's predictable and it's comfortable. What would be even worse for your brain, because it doesn't even know what it would be like to be loved unconditionally, regardless of the size you are. It doesn't know that. So it's like, no, that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. Like we talked about evidence. There's no evidence. Your brain hasn't collected the evidence yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I love that question though, because again, it might not even be like, for some people, it might not be body shame. It might be just self-hate. It might be like, for me, I always shame myself when I spend money on stupid shit. Right? Like, or not so much shaming now, but like, why do I keep doing this behavior that isn't serving me anymore? Like, why do I keep hating myself into that? Because it's familiar. It keeps me close to my dad who passed away when I was 21, right? Like, it keeps me connected to this person that I loved. So it's protecting me. This behavior, even though I don't want it, is protecting me. And so it's hard for me to separate from that, but I know that there is something better for me. So I actively work to change that. So that's the first thing. Figure out why you're doing it in the first place. So then I move into what I call my ACE method, just because it's an easy acronym. So the first is awareness. What are the things that you're doing, saying, and thinking about yourself? So that's why when I said about the crop top, wear it, pay attention to the thoughts that come up. You don't have to change the thoughts. You just are becoming aware that those thoughts exist. So that's the awareness piece. The next is C, which is curiosity. Who taught me that? Do I want to believe that? Who's profiting from that? Those are the main three ones that'll help get the ball rolling. And then that leads us to empowered action. Once you realize this thought is not mine, you now can take empowered action, which is choice. Like my mom said to me, you have two choices. You can continue to believe that thought, or we can come up with a new thought. What is a new thought that you could have that will help you be the person that wears the crop top this summer? Right? Because all thoughts are created. So why don't we create one that's going to help us? And it's all about reframing. But even if you were to choose like, no, right now I'm not feeling super great, I'm still going to believe what my mom told me, that I shouldn't wear this or whatever, you've at least chosen it, and it's not a default belief anymore. It's a choice. And because you've chosen it, there's not as much shame attached to it as when we fall into it by default. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So those would be my starting places for people. Yeah.
Amazing.
Love you.
It's literally breaking a routine though. Like you are becoming aware of a routine that you are putting yourself through. And then you are saying, I'm making a conscious choice to change this routine that I am in, this comfort cycle that I'm in. And I'm now going to force myself out of this routine and make a change. Or make the decision to stay. Like you said, it's at the end of the day, it becomes a choice now. Now that you're aware, that choice to stay is now yours. And if you are the kind of person who wants to break that cycle, you now know you need to break the routine that you are stuck in.
Yeah. And then you can go back through the whole method again. So it's like, okay, I want to make the next change. So it's like, okay, I want to change this. What fear is coming up for me now? So awareness of the fear that comes up with the idea of changing. So then you get curious about the fear that's coming up. Like, again, who taught me that I need to be afraid of being alone for the rest of my life? Or who taught me that this is bad or wrong or whatever? And then again, you could take empowered action and be like, no, that's not gonna happen. I'm surrounded by people that love me unconditionally. So I know that if I do this, even if it fails spectacularly, I have people that are, that got my back, even if that person is just me, right? So like you can use that over and over and over again to help yourself take the action when you're ready to take the action. But I think that's why that very first question is important to understand. Like, why am I afraid to change this routine to begin with? Like, what is it protecting me from? How is it saving me?
That is the best advice I've ever heard in my entire life.
I'm going to listen to this podcast episode over and over and over again. I'm going to work to it at the gym.
We're going to have to drop Teri's Venmo because that was a therapy session.
Yeah.
And we're just going to be like, if you felt like you got something from this, send her a tip, buy her coffee. That was your therapist for the last hour. But that's powerful. And, I realize as I'm talking to you that the way that I would handle situations or the things that I do feel a little bit more surface level, toxic positivity level. Like, when I'm saying that you want to break that routine, I normally suggest, every time you walk past a mirror, instead of saying something negative about yourself, compliment yourself. Find something that you love about yourself. And every time you see that reflection, try to find something new. Try to just put your focus on something new and create more of that positivity. And now I'm like, is that a good thing to continue doing? Is that a way to introduce self-love in, or do you recommend what's a good small thing that someone can change in their day-to-day life that can help break them out of routine?
Yeah, I would say that is an option depending where they are in their body image spectrum. So for people that are body neutral and want to get to body respect, body love, celebration, whatever, I would think that that is the way to go because they know that it's possible. But somebody that's in body rejection or body hate, their brain will be like, I don't believe it. So it doesn't do anything. What you can say, and I learned this from Sue Bryce, who's a photographer, but also like basically the Oprah of the portrait world.
Yep.
And now she does self-value work, but she essentially said, if you can't write an affirmation like, I am beautiful, you can change it to, I am becoming someone who thinks they're beautiful.
Wow.
So
Baby
I am
steps.
becoming statements. Yeah. So if you're in the body hate or body rejection and you walk past the mirror and you're like, whoa, gross, you say, wait, I am becoming somebody who is okay with what they see in the mirror, right? So it's like, just a little step instead of going the full way over here. So yeah, so both are valid. So that's where I would start with the one that you say first. And if you're not quite there yet, here's an alternative that you can do as well.
Teri, you talked just a couple of times about your body acceptance spectrum, and we'll definitely put in the show notes the link to that post so that our guests can go and see that for themselves. But could you just give us a really quick like overview of that spectrum, just what those levels look like for, you know, how you feel about your body?
Okay, so first we have body rejection, which is essentially where people just are like, gross, I hate this thing, I will never make peace with it, it's a piece of shit, essentially. Just there's not even room for becoming as much.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like, nope, don't like it. This represents a lot of really negative stuff. Then we have body avoidance. And I was in this phase in my high school years, I would say, where I'd made peace with the size that my body was. And I was like, well, if I just don't acknowledge it, and like it can come across as kind of body neutral, but the thing is, I wasn't paying attention. I was still very disconnected from my body. Like I was like, I'll play sports because that's what it could be good for, but I won't dress it up. I won't, I won't adorn it. I won't look at it. I won't be in photographs. I won't do any of that.
Spoken like a true avoidant.
Yeah, exactly. And then we go to body tolerance, which I would say is probably the neutral zone, where it's like, I tolerate it. It is what it is. It's, it's going to change, but still not like, still excited when you lose weight or still excited when you see yourself change in the direction of beauty standards, but tolerant of what is right now, essentially. And then we have body acceptance, which is I accept it for what it is. I appreciate it for what it could do. I'm connecting to it now so I can recognize not just how it looks, but also what it feels like. So that's like accepting all the things that the body is capable of. And then we move to body respect, because now that we accept it and are listening to our body, we say, okay, I may not want to move my body, but I know that it's good for my body. So I'm going to go move it. Right? Like I had such, after that bodybuilding and like having such a fucked up relationship with movement with my body when I was growing my business, I was like, I'm not going to work out ever. I'm going to be a rebel. And like, cause diet culture told me I have to. So, listen, your bodies need to move. Regardless of what size you are, that is one of the biggest indicators for health. Move your body. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could be whatever form you want, but your body needs to move. And so I realized for myself that I had to do something like I would for my partner, for example. I don't like to go to train museums, but for him, I will, right? Because he likes it. And so I respect my body. So I will work out because she likes it, not because I necessarily like it, if that makes sense. Also, now I do it so I can punch a Nazi in the face if I have to. So we've come around to a few different ways of motivation. But then once we have body respect, we move to body appreciation. And now it's like really practicing gratitude and recognizing and thanking her for what she's done and what she's doing, and practicing forgiveness for maybe the way that she was treated in the past, and just like really being thankful like for all the parts of the body, how it works, how it feels, even the things that aren't good, right? And recognizing like, yes, but you got me through that really hard thing, so thank you for that. And then we move to body joy and celebration, which is the point where we just are living our fucking lives and we don't really think about our bodies in a way that is, they don't get in the way of us living our lives. And we're doing things with our bodies where even whatever size you're at, you're like, I want to hike. So you go hike with the body you have and you enjoy the process of hiking and you don't shame yourself because it took longer than it used to when you were 12. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing things out of joy with the body you have and you're celebrating that body for what it is. You're dressing it up in a way that's fun. You're doing the photo shoots for creative outlets instead of to look a certain way. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of the main things, I would say, the main points. And to jump from body rejection all the way to body celebration is just not going to happen. So you do need to instead look at, okay, how do I get from body rejection to the next stage and the next stage to the next stage? And that's kind of what I talked about in that post. So yeah, I'll share the link with you guys so you can share it with people afterwards.
I love it.
And we're going to have a second episode literally just to break down each one of those, how to get from one step to the next step, and we'll just figure that all out together.
Yeah, I've already written the post for it, so don't worry.
Perfect. Now, Teri, I cannot thank you enough for coming in today. It has been such an honor. And every time that I get the chance to spend time with you, like, I feel like I leave a whole new human. So
thanks.
I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you're definitely one of those people that I've met. You've changed my life. And I was so excited to have you on today because I know just listening to you and watching Heather, I can see the little stars kind of happening in Heather's eyes now. And that's like the best thing that I could ever ask for, is sharing the people that I love with more people that I love. So thank you for being on here. I appreciate it more than you even know.
Absolutely. Like, repeating that sentiment over and over again. Now that we've actually started releasing some episodes, we're getting feedback from people saying, oh my God, I feel exactly like that. You know, I can relate to this and I can relate to that. And I think there's so many women out there that are going to be able to relate to this episode. And I just think, you know, just like Hannah and I need to hear these conversations, our audience needs to hear these conversations. And I'm very excited to share it with them. And I'm really hoping that you'll come back and talk to us again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So is there anything exciting that's next for you? Like, what does your next chapter look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I'm kind of in a spot we were talking about before we started recording that I'm like trying to do a bunch of different things to find where the spark is again. And we could talk about that on another podcast about how body image and hustle culture relate and link intensely. But I essentially burnt out on photography, had to take a sabbatical just to kind of recheck myself and be like, is this what I'm doing? And so now, I'm doing photography a little bit, not as much as I was before. I only want to take 12 clients a year, like basically one a month, and plus some creative shoots in there. And I'm working on the speaking, doing more speaking engagements, and I love podcasting and being interviewed on podcasts. And haven't started my next book yet, but that'll be coming in 2 years, probably, I think. I don't know what it's about yet, though, so I have to. I had this thought where I was like, if I want to write something different, I have to do something different. So right now I'm in the do something different phase, where I'm just like trying a bunch of different things to see like what is sparking the glow now. But the mission remains the same, regardless of what the medium is that I'm choosing. And that is really to show up every day and be in service of helping people. You had said that when you hear me talk, like, you feel like a different person. And my hope is that not that you feel like a different person, but more that you're connecting to who you were before the world told you who you shouldn't be.
Yes.
So my goal is to get people back to the little versions of themselves that didn't get to be celebrated, that didn't deserve the things that happened to them. And so that, and to teach them how to parent themselves back to those little versions of themselves. Because I think that is what the world needs more of. So regardless of how I do that, whether through speaking, photography, writing, whatever, that is kind of the mission and the purpose. So we'll see what happens.
You should write a parenting book.
Let's see, here's why I won't, is
because you're not a parent.
Not a parent.
Yeah.
And like, I have had enough conversations with my sister that are like, you don't know.
I think though,
I don't know.
As a mother, the advice that you gave was really, I think that the advice that you gave was really deep. And I think it would mean a lot to hear that advice.
A better idea. how about you take the advice, apply it, and you write the book, so you are the role model for the parents. Not to give you a whole other like life to live, but that's what I want, and that's why a lot of parents do say like, "Oh my God, my daughter needs to hear you speak," or like, "My child needs to hear you talk," and I'm like, no.
They need to hear,
because they need you. Because if I talk to your kid for 2 hours about whatever we just talked about here, and they go home to a household that's like super body negative, or even just the offhanded comments here and there,
Right.
It's not going to make that big of a difference, really.
It's going to be in the change of the learned behavior from the parents.
The parents are they're the role models, whether or not they like it. And I just was on my podcast, I interviewed somebody who does body image workshops for teens and tweens, and she's like, my job is to just like plant seeds, and we get the choice of what those seeds are that are going to be planted in those kids.
Yes.
So we can either plant the ones that are going to create the weeds, or we can plant the ones that are going to blossom it into something really beautiful. And I just thought that was like such a good analogy for parents to be like, how can my self-love and my body embrace be the seed for the child that blossoms and doesn't create the weed? So that's your homework.
I was literally going to say before, you're like sprinkling little seeds everywhere of just how to make change. And I love that.
Yeah.
And you do have a book out. So if people do want to hear more and learn more about you, you have a book about body image and breaking the cycles and all that.
So I actually have 3 books out right now, but
bitch.
one specifically is about body image. So that one's called The Geo Theory, Chipping Away at Body Image. And it is essentially every chapter has little homework assignments. So if you are just starting out on the body image journey, it does walk you through, but you are the one that has to do the work. That's the thing. I can give you the map, but ultimately you have to decide that you are worth doing that work for. So there's that one. And then the next one I wrote was 2,200 characters or less, which was all my Instagram content from basically 2020 to 2022, all my short form content compiled into one big ass book. And then the third one is my memoir, which is Homecoming: Tales of Travel, Discovery, and Self-Acceptance, where I processed a lot of the shame I carried forward from my 20s and the things I learned through traveling and the things that I wish I hadn't learned the way that I did, but I did. So, it was really good for me to write it. So, yeah. And you can find those on my website at terihofford.com/books.
Perfect. I was just going to say that. I'm like, drop the Instagram. We'll have all the information in the description of this today. Teri, again, I am at a loss for words. I appreciate you so much. I know that this is going to be a great episode, and I know that this is going to help plant the seed in a lot of people's brains.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, glow those gardens.
Yes, it's time to blossom.
Yeah, I was like, I got to change my whole website and make it like garden themed now that I'm into that. So
yeah. Who knows what's next? Maybe Teri Seeds. Who knows?
Hey, listen, I was like, that sounds a little pornographic, but
Thank you again. And thank you to all of our main characters today who decided to come in. We cannot wait to share this episode and many, many more with you. I think that's it. We're still working on our outros. All right.
Thanks, Teri.
A quick blessing before we go. May your mirror be kind, your coffee be strong, and your confidence slightly delusional.
You are the main character, the muse, and the movement.
We'll see you next chapter, babe.